Hey guys, so happy Monday. Today we are doing lesson 100 in your math book, and I just so happen to have these notes typed out just because there is a lot of rules that go into this, and I'm going to try and make it as least confusing as possible. So I'm going to show you the rules first, and then I'm going to teach it to you using a number line. So whichever way comes easier to you, whether it's memorizing the rules or whether it's using a number line, you can use. So rule number 1 is adding unlike signs. Now what I mean by unlike signs is I mean that one number is a positive and then one number is a negative number. So if you're adding positives and negatives with unlike signs, which means you have a negative number and a positive number, then you're actually going to subtract the two numbers and then give the answer the sign of the larger number. So let me show you what I mean by that. So let's pretend that you have this example right here, 120 plus negative 20. So that means that 120 is a positive 120. Because there's not a sign in front of it. So you're going to assume that it's just a positive number. And then you have a negative 20. And you have an addition sign. So what that means is that you are adding a positive number and a negative number. So according to our rule, we are actually going to subtract 120 minus 20. And that's how we get 100. And then it also says that we have to give the same sign to our answer as whatever our larger number is. So if our larger number is 120, then 120 is a positive number. So that means our answer is going to be a positive 100. Now that doesn't mean that I actually have to write a little positive sign in front of the 100. I can just write my answer as 100. Okay, the next one is if I have negative 7, so that means that 7 is a negative, plus 3, so that means because there's nothing in front of that 3, it's a positive 3. According to my rule, I'm actually going to subtract 7 and 4. So 7 and 3. So 7 minus 3 gives me 4. Now it also says though that I have to give the same sign to my answer as my largest number. So the 7 is the largest number in this problem, and that 7 is a negative 7. So that means that my answer has to have a negative sign with it. So my answer is negative 4. Now that negative sign is actually very, very important in your answer. So you need to actually write your answer as a negative 4, like that. Okay? And like I said, we'll use the number line here in a second, and I'll show you how to do these using a number line. Now the next rule is if you're adding like signs. So that means that you are adding either positive and positive or negative and negative. Okay, so when we are adding the same signs, we actually do add the numbers. We don't subtract them. We actually do add them. And then you give the answer the sign of the numbers. Okay, so this is an easy rule. So let's pretend that I have a negative plus a negative. Okay, so I have a negative 20 plus a negative 10. So then I'm actually going to add 20 and 10. So 20 plus 10 is 30. But it says I have to give the answer the same sign as the numbers. So because I have negative 20 and negative 10, that means that my 30 has to be a negative 30. So I want to write my answer as negative 30. Okay, and then the next example, I'm doing a positive plus a positive. So I have positive 10 plus positive 30. So 10 plus 30 equals 40. So my answer has to be a positive answer because my numbers in the problem are both positive. But I don't actually have to write that positive sign in my answer. I can just leave it as 40. So hopefully you're seeing the pattern here that if a number does not have a positive or a negative in front of it, you automatically assume that it is positive. Okay? Now the last rule is for subtraction. So if you are subtracting sign numbers, okay, and again, this is still kind of having a positive and a negative number, that it would just be subtraction rather than adding them. Okay, so when a subtraction sign is used, think of that subtraction sign as a negative sign. Okay, notice how they look the same. Subtraction looks like a negative. So subtracting a positive number is the same thing as adding the negative of that number. So for example, if I have negative 10 minus 15, what that actually means is negative 10 plus negative 15. So then I'm actually going to add 10 and 15 together. So 10 plus 15 gives me 25. Now if you go back up here to rule number 2, a negative plus a negative has to equal a negative answer. So because both numbers in my problem are negative, I have to make sure that my answer is also a negative. Then if you are subtracting a negative number, or subtracting a negative number is the same thing as adding the positive of that number. So 13 minus negative 14 is the same thing as 13 plus 14. Okay, so you can think of it as positive 13 plus 14. So you would add 13 and 14, which gives you 27. Okay, now because 13 and 14 are both positive, that means that my answer is also a positive 27. But remember, I don't actually have to write it like that. I can just write it as 27. Okay, and feel free to rewatch this video as many times as possible because I know this is very complicated. But let me just show you how to use the number line. A number line, especially if you have smaller numbers, might actually be a little bit easier for you to think about. So we're going to actually do these examples using a number line. So it would be probably a good idea to draw a number line using pen or a marker and then using a pencil to actually follow along with me. So if you need to pause this video to make that, feel free to do that now. So the first example that I'm going to be doing is 4 minus 5. Okay, so 4 minus 5, if y'all will watch me do this. So 4, I am starting at the 4 because that 4 is positive since it does not have anything in front of it. Now, because I am subtracting 5, I am moving to the left. So anytime you are subtracting, it means move left. Okay, so I'm going to jump 5 places to the left because it is 4 minus 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer is negative 1. Okay, which is what I got right here. Now, let's do the one beside of it. My starting point is 4. Okay, so 4 plus negative 5. So if you remember, according to, I believe it is rule number 1, adding unlike signs, you have to actually subtract those numbers. Okay, so you are actually going to subtract 4 and 5, and because 5 is my biggest number, that is why I give my answer a negative. Okay, so these two mean the exact same thing. So I'm not going to use my number line to do that. Okay, since they're the exact same problem. Now, I'm going to go ahead and erase my pencil marks so I can reuse this. And let's do example 2. So 4 minus negative 5. So that means that 4 is going to be my starting point and it's subtraction. Okay? So technically I can move to the left, or I can think about it as 4 plus 5, because this minus sign and this negative sign equal a plus sign. Okay, and that is according to rule number 1. Okay, so because I am, or no, I'm sorry, not rule number 1, rule number 3. So because I am subtracting these, according to rule number 3, subtracting a positive number, or I'm sorry, subtracting a negative number is the same thing as adding the positive of that number. So I'm using this rule number 3 right here. So I would start at 4, okay, and because this is a little bit easier for me to think about, I'm going to be moving towards the right since it's plus 5. So plus, you move right if you are adding something. So I'm going to start at 4, and I'm going to move to the right 5 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer is 9. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and erase my pencil marks so I can reuse it. Okay, so this problem is the same thing as this problem. Okay, now the next one, negative 4 minus 5. So I'm going to start at a negative 4, which is right here. And I'm going to move to the left 5 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer is a negative 9, which is what I got. And this is the same as this. Okay. And again, I'm sorry that this video is a little bit long, but this lesson is probably one of the hardest lessons that we're going to finish with. So please, please, please feel free to watch it as many times as you need. So this next example, I have either negative 4 minus negative 5, or I can think of it as negative 4 plus 5. Okay, and I like this version better. So I'm going to start at negative 4, and because it's a plus sign, I'm moving to the right 5 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So my answer is 1. Okay, and then the next one, I like 5 minus 4, even though it's the same as 5 plus negative 4. So I'm going to start at my 5, and I'm going to move to the left 4 times. since it's subtraction. I'm going to start here, and I'm going to move left 4 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is 1, which is what I got there. Okay, the next one is 5 minus negative 4 or 5 plus 4 because they're the same problem. So I like this one better. It's less for me to think about. So I'm going to start at the 5 and I'm going to move 4 places to the right since it's addition. Okay, so start at the 5 and move 4 places to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I get a 9, which is my answer. Okay, the next one is negative 5 minus 4 or negative 5 plus negative 4. So I like this one. Notice how I'm choosing the ones that have fewer signs because they're a little bit easier to understand. So I'm going to start at my negative 5 and I'm going to move 4 places to the left since it is subtraction. Okay, so start at the negative 5 and move 4 places to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4. And my answer is a negative 9, which is what I got. Okay, and last but not least is negative 5 minus negative 4 or negative 5 plus 4. This one has fewer signs, so I'm going to use this one. So I'm going to start at my negative 5, and because it is addition, I'm going to move 4 places to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I get negative 1, which is my answer. Okay, so hopefully this makes a little bit more sense to you. Please read through this lesson. It's lesson 100. And take your time on this one, guys, because this one is a difficult lesson. Rewatch the video if you need to. And good luck. Just let me know if you have any questions or concerns. And